Welcome to today's class. Today we are going to talk about supplier and market behaviors. As you all know, suppliers are one of the most stakeholders who must be in any organization. And for any supplier to be successful, you must analyze how the market behaves. So marketing behavior is all about knowing how the markets behave. So basically you're checking the buyers and the sellers in the market and trying to see how they behave. So all those activities involved in transferring of goods and services from the buyer to the seller basically takes place in the market. So the purchasing departments must therefore be involved in determining the prices of materials. And through that, therefore, it means that at the end of the day, they'll be evaluating the best market where materials can be obtained under favorable conditions. So it is always important for suppliers and buyers to analyze the market conditions. So what are some of the reasons that forces the organization to analyze the market conditions? So one of the reasons is to help the purchasing department to ensure they come up with decision. So it helps them in making decisions on which type of market they are going to buy their products or services. The other thing is that it helps them in forecasting in the long term demand for the products which the materials components have to be bought. So basically it allows them to be able to make forecasts of the market. It also assists them in forecasting the prices trends. So you're able to know the trends in the market, trends in terms of prices and how best it can affect the production cost and the selling prices. It also indicates what alternative goods and supply source are available. So the organization is able to know the alternative good and the source of supply where they are going to get the goods from. It also provides information relating to the pay trends, commodity prices, political factors, and therefore purchasing department is able to decide whether to adopt a strategy of buying and maintaining minimum stock. So it's always important to analyze the market condition. This is because it gives benefits to the organization. So what is a market structure? A market structure can be defined as an organizational characteristics of the market. So market structure, we have different market structures which have different characteristics. So depending on what market you want to go to, therefore it is very important to determine the market structure you are going to adopt. Therefore, marketing structure focuses on the characteristics which affect the nature of competition and pricing. So market structure affects the nature of characteristics and the competition in the market. It is therefore important to place too much emphasis on the market share of the existing firms in the industry. So market structure is all about the market share that exists in various firms and industries. The main aspect of determining the market structure is the number of agents in the market, both the sellers and the buyer. So if you want to determine the market structure of any organization or any environment, you need to check the number of agents in the market, both the sellers and the buyers. The other important thing to determine is the relative negotiation strength in terms of ability to set prices. So you should have a very strong negotiation strength so that at the end of the day you will be able to get the best prices. The other one is the degree of concentration among the buyers and the sellers. So you need to identify the degree of concentration. The other important thing is the degree of differentiation and uniqueness of products and the ease. So you also need to see the degree of differentiation, the uniqueness of the various players in the market. So the first market structure that we are going to talk about is the perfect market condition. So one of the characteristics of the perfect market condition is that it has many buyers and many sellers. So you realize in a perfect market we have many buyers and many sellers. The other thing is that we have free entry and free exit. In this type of market you can decide to enter the market and exit anytime you want. The other important thing is prices are determined by the forces of supply and demand curve. So you realize the prices, you don't just set the prices. You must determine your prices with the various forces of both demand and supply. The other important thing is that there are no government controls of prices. So the only person who can control the prices are the demand and the supplies. And lastly, we have it maintains main interest of the member of the market is profit maximization. So the buyers and the sellers in this market basically want to maximize their prices. What are some of the advantages? What are some of the advantages of this market? The first advantage is that we have security of sourcing of materials. This is because we have many buyers and many sellers, and in terms of sourcing of materials, therefore it becomes very easy. Then we have the consumer sovereignty. We have the consumer freedom. The consumer is able to choose from among many sellers. Then we have low prices. Because of the nature of buyers and sellers, then it means at the end of the day, the prices will be lower. Then we have homogeneity of products and high productivity. Homo means similarity. The other thing is the disadvantages. One of the disadvantages of this type of system is that quality is compromised. We realize we have many buyers and many sellers, and at the end of the day, this means that the quality of the products will be compromised. Then we have the risk of capital when purchasing the product. So you realize the people who are buying the products at the end of the day might have the risk. And capital is all about the money that you require to start a business. Sometimes the capital might be at risk. So the second type of market we are going to talk about is the monopoly. A monopoly, as the name suggests, mono means one. Therefore, a monopoly is a single supplier in a market. The reason for monopoly power exists if the firm has an exclusive ownership of scarce resources. So if you have ownership of scarce resources, therefore, you automatically qualify to be a monopoly. A good example is Kenya Power in Kenya. When they are granted power to have a patent of a design copyright with exclusive rights. Once you have the power to exclusive rights, at the end of the day, you can become a monopoly. So what are some of the characteristics? So the other thing we must talk about today is the characteristics of a monopoly. As you all know, monopoly is a single person who dominates the market, or a single organization that dominates the market. So one of the characteristics of a monopoly is that he or she makes supernormal profits in the long run, and this is necessitated by the price differences in general and the level of profits. The other characteristic of a monopoly is that a monopolistic product has no close substitute, and therefore he is able to derive the greatest monopoly power. So there is no close substitute. For example, Kenya Power, the close substitute of Kenya Power is the solar energy. But you realize at the end of the day, not all people have the solar energy. The other thing about monopoly is that the price is determined by the monopoly is the one who determines the price of the product. Then the other characteristic is that we have barrier of entry in this kind of market due to exclusive rights that are granted to the monopoly. And lastly, we have high resource and available, therefore enabling to benefit from economies of scales. So the advantages of monopoly is that the monopoly operates in a favorable kind of market as segmented in the monopoly of the product and may be obtained at reasonable price. The other advantage is that the materials obtained may be of high quality since the monopoly have more resources to produce. Another characteristic is that there is reduced cost of supply, identification and evaluation since the supply is already known, and the purchasing department may get favorable terms and conditions due to the enhanced relationship during monopoly. And lastly, you have the chances of getting materials always due to the consistent production of materials by the materials. So what are some of the disadvantages of monopoly? Sometimes the quality might be compromised. This is because of the exclusive rights and ownership of production. The other thing is that no customer sovereignty, since procuring departments have no close substitute to choose from. So you realize at the end of the day, the consumer don't have that freedom of choosing from an alternative. The other thing is that the procurement department may likely to obtain the product at higher prices if they fall under the category or market segment which discriminates at higher prices. So in this type of monopoly, we have a lot of discrimination in terms of prices. Then the other thing is that the purchasing department may get restricted output or supply according to the way it may feel. And lastly, we have the purchasing department may likely to get unnegotiated terms and conditions if the monopoly has exclusive rights and ownership. The other type of market is oligopoly. An oligopoly market is a market structure in which the market is dominated by a small number of sellers and suppliers with close substitute. The characteristics is that oligopoly market results to various forms of collusion. So in this type of market, we have very many collusions, different companies coming together to do business together. The other thing is that they are price setters rather than price takers, since the price is set in a form of an agreement between all the other sellers in the market. So they are the people who set the price rather than price takers. The other thing is that there are barriers to entry in this kind of structure due to government licenses, patents, strategic actions by the members of that market. So entering this market is not easy. This is because of the patents. The other thing is that profit maximization conditions are made when marginal revenue is higher than marginal cost. Therefore, they also make abnormal profits during the normal run. There are so few firms, and therefore the actions of one firm can influence the actions of another firm. The product may be homogeneous but differentiated through packaging. There is non-price competition in oligopolistic market, and there is the interdependence of form of pricing of the products, the suppliers, and the action that are taken in the market. Thank you for listening. So basically we have those three major types of market structure, but we also have the other one, but we've not talked about. So what I'd encourage you is to continue reading and ensure you understand the different market structures in which buyers and sellers operate in. Thank you for listening.